Admiral Frank Morrison stared at the message on his screen. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the edge of his desk. After 15 years of fighting for humanity's place among the stars, the final answer had come. It was a single word: denied. The Galactic Council, with its 57 member species, had voted against Earth's membership for the third and final time. 3 strikes, and you're out. That was the Council's ancient rule. There would be no more chances. Frank closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Outside his office window, the United Space Alliance headquarters buzzed with activity. None of those people knew yet that their dreams of joining the wider galactic community had just been crushed. He pressed the intercom button. "Mary, get me Dr. Collins immediately." Within minutes, Lisa Collins entered his office. Her usual neat appearance was disheveled, dark circles under her eyes showing she had been working late again. As head of the Xenological Relations Department, she had dedicated her career to understanding alien cultures and building bridges. "They said no," Frank said simply. Lisa didn't look surprised. "What reason this time?" Frank turned his screen so she could read the full message. "The usual. Our inherent unpredictability and violent tendencies make us unsuitable partners. They claim we're too young as a species, too emotional, too unpredictable." Lisa's expression hardened. "We've spent 50 years proving ourselves. We ended all major conflicts on Earth. We unified our governments. We cleaned our oceans and atmosphere. We met every single requirement they set. And they moved the goalposts every time," Frank added. "This was never about our qualifications." Lisa walked to the window, looking up at the sky, where invisible to the naked eye, Council observation satellites monitored Earth constantly. "They're afraid of us." "What do you mean?" "Think about it," she said. "Most Council species took thousands of years to develop space travel. We did it in less than 300 years from our first powered flight. We solve problems differently. We adapt faster. We're unpredictable to them, and that scares them." Frank nodded slowly. "So what now?" "We've been building our future around Council membership for decades." Lisa turned back to him, her decision already made. "Remember Project Exodus?" Frank's eyes widened. Olivia Martinez's crazy idea. The alternative path. That was just a backup plan, a thought experiment. "It was more than that," Lisa said, pulling a small device from her pocket. She placed it on the desk, and it projected a hologram showing construction schematics for massive ships, unlike anything in Earth's public space program. "We've been developing it in secret for 5 years. The president authorized funding after the second rejection. She suspected this day would come." "Those aren't standard drives," Frank noted, examining the propulsion systems. "No, they're fold drives. They don't use the Council's hyperspace lanes. They create dimensional slipstreams, pathways the Council doesn't even know exist." Frank stood up, his military mind quickly processing the implications. "You're talking about leaving Council space entirely." "I'm talking about humanity charting its own course among the stars," Lisa corrected, "without asking permission." Frank walked around his desk, studying the hologram with new interest. "How many people know about this?" "A few thousand key scientists, engineers, and military personnel. And now you. How close is it to ready?" "The prototype works. We've been secretly building a fleet for 3 years. We could begin major operations within months." Frank nodded slowly, decades of diplomatic frustration hardening into resolve. "I need to speak with the president." Lisa picked up the secure communication device from his desk and handed it to him. "She's expecting your call." As Frank established the connection, Lisa looked out at the blue sky once more. "Tell her it's time," she said quietly. "They'd left us no choice." The Admiral nodded as the President's face appeared on screen. "Madam President, it's time for Project Exodus. The Council has made their decision. And now we'll make ours." 5 years earlier, on a rainy Tuesday morning, Olivia Martinez stood before a room of skeptical government officials. Her hand shook slightly as she clicked to the next slide in her presentation. "We don't need the council," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "We can build our own path to the stars." The men and women watching her exchanged doubtful glances. Olivia was brilliant, everyone knew that. At 32, she had revolutionized Earth's propulsion systems. But this was different. This was suggesting humanity could bypass the carefully controlled hyperspace lanes that the Galactic Council had maintained for 50,000 years. "That's impossible," said General Williams. "Every species uses the Council's lanes. There is no alternative." Olivia smiled. "Every species except one. The drift nomads." The room fell silent. The drift nomads were legendary, a mysterious species that appeared and disappeared without warning, never using established routes. The Council claimed they were just myths. "I studied the sensor readings from every reported nomad sighting," Olivia continued. "They're not using hyperspace. They're folding space-time in a way we never considered." She showed her calculations, complex equations flowing across the screen. Most of the officials looked lost, but one man leaned forward with intense interest. Alan Blackwood, the renowned quantum physicist, studied her work with widening eyes. "You're suggesting a dimensional slipstream," he said quietly, "a pathway between realities." Olivia nodded. "Exactly. And I think we can build an engine to access it." The meeting ended with polite dismissal. Only the president seemed intrigued, asking Olivia to stay behind after the others left. "How long would it take to develop this technology?" she asked. "With proper funding and resources. 5 years, maybe less if Dr. Blackwood helps." The president looked out the window toward the stars. "The council will vote on our membership again in 5 years. Work with Blackwood. Keep it quiet. Consider it insurance." 1 month later, deep in the Rocky Mountains, Olivia stood in a newly built laboratory. Equipment was still being installed as Alan Blackwood entered, carrying a small case. "I brought something," he said, opening it to reveal a strange crystal that glowed with inner light. "A gift from a drift nomad. They do exist, and they gave me this 15 years ago." Olivia stared in wonder. "How did you meet them?" "Pure luck. Their ship appeared near my research station on Europa. We traded knowledge. They were curious about us." He handed her the crystal. "They said this helps them swim between worlds. I could never understand how it worked, until I saw your equations." For the next 2 years, Olivia and Alan worked tirelessly. Their team grew slowly, each member carefully selected and sworn to secrecy. They built prototype after prototype, each one getting closer to success. The breakthrough came when Olivia realized the crystal wasn't a power source but a navigation tool. It could find weak points between dimensions where their engines could create a fold. On a cold winter night in their 3rd year, the team gathered around a small probe equipped with their experimental drive. Alan input coordinates for Jupiter's orbit, and Olivia initiated the sequence. The probe hummed, glowed with strange light, and vanished. "Did it work?" someone whispered. Alan checked his instruments and smiled. "It's at Jupiter. Trip time. 2.3 seconds." The team erupted in cheers. Olivia sat down, suddenly overwhelmed. They had done it, created a way for humanity to travel without the Council's lanes. Within months, construction began on remote facilities across Earth and the Moon. While public diplomatic efforts continued, secret shipyards built vessels equipped with fold drives. Colony ships, exploration vessels, and defensive crafts took shape in hidden lunar craters. Olivia supervised it all, knowing that each ship represented a future where humanity wouldn't need the Council's permission to reach for the stars. They would forge their own path, whether the Council approved or not. "We'll be ready," she promised Alan as they watched construction of the flagship Determination begin. "When the time comes, we'll be ready." High Counselor Zex Karth floated in his nutrient bath, his gelatinous body glowing with faint blue light as he studied the reports from Earth. Something was wrong. The energy readings from the planet had changed over the past 3 years. Power usage had increased by 30%, but official human records only showed a 10% increase. Humans were hiding something. He extended a transparent tendril toward the communication panel. "Send in junior diplomat Vrentalu." Minutes later, a slender, green-skinned being entered the chamber. Vrentalu was young for his species, only 200 years old, and known for his unusual interest in human culture. "You requested my presence, High Counselor." Vrentalu bowed low, his 4 eyes blinking nervously. "These energy readings from Earth. Explain them." Zex Karth projected the data into the air between them. Vrentalu studied the numbers, his head frills rising with concern. "They're building something, High Counselor. Something big. What could require so much power?" "I'm not certain." Vrentalu hesitated. "But I've intercepted unusual communications. They speak of shipyards and materials being moved to their moon." Zex Karth's body darkened with alarm. "Ships, beyond their allowed quota." "Yes, High Counselor. And there's more." Vrentalu activated his own data device. "Our monitoring satellites have detected unusual quantum fluctuations near Earth, similar to those recorded during drift nomad sightings." "Impossible. The humans don't have that technology. Perhaps they've developed it. They're remarkably adaptive." Zex Karth's body rippled with dismissive waves. "No species has developed full technology independently. The nomads guard their secrets carefully. With respect, High Counselor, humans solve problems differently than most council species. Your fondness for these creatures clouds your judgment, young one." Zex Karth turned away. "Nevertheless, send a surveillance drone to their moon. Be discreet." 3 days later, Vrentalu returned with the drone's findings. The images showed massive construction sites hidden on the far side of Earth's moon. Enormous ships took shape in the lunar craters, unlike any human vessels previously documented. "This is concerning," Zex Karth admitted. "Show this to Elder Yulmox immediately." The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as 57 representatives from across the galaxy debated the meaning of the images. Elder Yulmox, the oldest member of the council at over 12,000 years, called for order. "What are the humans planning?" asked the representative from Proxima Centauri, her crystalline body glittering with anxiety. "Obviously preparing for war," rumbled the delegate from Ta City. "We should destroy these ships immediately," suggested another. Elder Yulmox raised his ancient, withered hand for silence. "We will follow proper procedures. First, we must officially investigate. Then, if necessary, issue warnings. Only then can we consider intervention." "That will take months," protested Vrentalu. "By then, whatever they're planning could be complete. Council procedures have maintained peace for 50,000 years. Yulmox replied sternly. "We will not abandon them out of fear." As the council argued, Vrentalu slipped away to his private quarters. He accessed his communication device and sent a message to his human friend, a junior diplomat named Greg Wilson. "The council knows about the ships. They're debating what to do. It will take them at least 3 months to act. Whatever you're planning, hurry." Back on Earth, Greg received the message while sitting in a planning meeting for Project Exodus. He quietly showed it to Admiral Morrison, who read it with a grim expression. "Our window is closing," the Admiral announced to the room. "The Council has spotted our lunar facilities. We need to accelerate the timeline." General Richard Howard nodded. "The fleet is at 80% readiness. We can launch in 60 days if necessary." "Make it 45, said the President, her face set with determination. "And prepare for a global announcement. It's time to tell our people the truth." As the meeting adjourned, Lisa Collins approached Frank. "The Council will try to stop us." "Let them try," Frank replied. "By the time they make a decision, we'll be beyond their reach. Forever." Morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Oval Office as the President adjusted her suit jacket. In 30 minutes, she would deliver the most important speech in human history. Her hands trembled slightly as she reviewed her notes one last time. "Are you ready, Madam President?" asked her chief of staff. She nodded. "As ready as anyone can be when telling 7 billion people we're leaving our home planet." The door opened, and 3 people entered. General Richard Howard, a tall man with silver hair and perfect posture. Dr. Samantha Miller, whose gentle eyes contrasted with her reputation as the world's foremost environmental scientist. And Kyle Peterson, the charismatic leader of the civilian volunteer corps who had been secretly preparing families for the coming exodus. "The military is ready," General Howard reported. "All defense systems are in place to protect the launch sites. Environmental restoration protocols are online," added Dr. Miller. "The automated systems will continue healing Earth long after we're gone." Kyle stepped forward. 3 million civilian volunteers are prepared to help with the evacuation. The public information packages are ready for distribution as soon as your speech ends. The president took a deep breath. "Let's go." In homes, workplaces, and public squares across the world, screens lit up with the presidential seal. People paused their daily activities, sensing the importance of this unscheduled address. The president stood at the podium, the familiar rose garden behind her. To her left stood military leaders, including Admiral Morrison. To her right were scientists, including Olivia Martinez and Alan Blackwood, whose faces were now about to become known worldwide. "My fellow citizens of Earth," the president began, her voice steady. "For generations, we have looked to the stars, hoping to join the galactic community as equals. For 50 years, we have petitioned the Galactic Council for membership, meeting every requirement they set before us." She paused, letting the familiar narrative sink in. 3 days ago, we received their final answer. They have rejected humanity for the 3rd and last time. Murmurs spread through crowds watching around the world. But this is not the end of our journey among the stars. It is merely the beginning of a new chapter. Behind her, a large screen displayed images of massive ships under construction on the far side of the moon. For 5 years, our best minds have been working on Project Exodus, a plan for humanity to chart its own course without the Council's permission or limitations. Gasps and confused chatter erupted worldwide as people saw the scale of what had been built in secret. These ships represent humanity's future. They're equipped with revolutionary fold drive technology that allows us to travel through space without using the Council's controlled hyperspace lanes. In 45 days, the first ships of our fleet will depart Earth, beginning the greatest migration in human history. The president's gaze was unwavering as she continued. "This is not an abandonment of Earth. This is humanity expanding beyond the limitations others would place on us. Some of us will stay behind as caretakers, but most will journey to new worlds where we can build societies free from external control." She gestured to the people standing beside her. "The brightest minds on our planet have been preparing for this moment. We have identified habitable worlds. We have developed terraforming technology. We have built ships capable of sustaining generations." Kyle Peterson stepped forward, explaining how people could register for the evacuation. Dr. Miller detailed the environmental safeguards being left behind. General Howard assured everyone that Earth would remain protected during the transition. As the broadcast continued, Council observers stationed on Earth watched in stunned silence. One of them, a reptilian being, activated his communication device. "High Counselor, you need to see this. The humans, they're leaving." Back in the Council headquarters, Zexkarth and Elder Yilmox viewed the Earth broadcast with growing alarm. "How did they develop fold technology?" Yilmox asked, his ancient voice quavering. "I warned you they were different," Vren Talu said quietly. "Now it's too late." On Earth, as the president concluded her address, a strange mix of fear and excitement swept across humanity. Project Exodus had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The massive hangar bay of the flagship Determination buzzed with activity as Captain Natalie Wright inspected the final preparations. At 45, she had spent half her life in space, commanding everything from small research vessels to military cruisers. Now she would lead the greatest journey in human history. "Status report, Lieutenant," she said to Daniel Garcia, her second in command. Lieutenant Garcia checked his tablet. Life support systems at 100%. Food stores complete. Medical bay fully stocked. Engine room reports the full drive is calibrated and ready. Natalie nodded, watching as the last group of civilian families boarded. Children clutched stuffed animals while parents carried small bags of personal belongings. Everyone was limited to what they could fit in 2 standard containers. Humanity was traveling light to its new future. "How many ships are ready?" she asked. 2,873 confirmed ready for launch, Daniel replied. "The remaining ships will follow in the second wave, 10 days later." Natalie walked to the observation deck, gazing out at the lunar landscape. Hundreds of ships of all sizes stretched across the moon's surface, gleaming under the harsh sunlight. Colony arcs designed to carry tens of thousands of people. Agricultural vessels containing seeds and livestock. Mining ships equipped to gather resources from asteroid belts. It was an armada born of necessity and human ingenuity. Back on Earth, lines of people streamed into spaceports across the planet. Kyle Peterson directed volunteer teams who helped elderly passengers and families with young children. Despite the enormity of the evacuation, there was surprising order. People had accepted the need to leave with remarkable calmness. "Everyone has their assignment," Kyle explained to a news reporter. "Everyone knows which ship to board, what they can bring, what their role will be in the new colonies. We've been planning this for years." In orbit above Earth, Council observers finally arrived in force. Their sleek, silver ships dwarfed Earth's normal defense vessels, but looked small compared to the massive Exodus fleet. "You must halt this immediately," the Council ambassador demanded in a transmission to Earth's leaders. "This unauthorized migration violates 17 different Council protocols." Admiral Morrison, overseeing the evacuation from Mission Control, smiled thinly as he replied, "We requested permission to travel among the stars as equals. You denied us. We no longer recognize your authority to restrict our movements. We are prepared to offer membership under special considerations," the ambassador said, his tone suddenly conciliatory. "Too late," Morrison replied. "The vote has been cast. Humanity has chosen its own path." On the lunar surface, Dr. Lisa Collins supervised the loading of Earth's cultural archives onto dedicated ships. Digital copies of every book, film, artwork, and musical composition. DNA samples of Earth's biodiversity. Historical artifacts and scientific knowledge. Everything that made humanity what it was would travel with them to the stars. "We're not just saving our people," she told Olivia Martinez as they watched the loading process. "We're saving our soul." Olivia nodded, her eyes fixed on the full drive indicators. The first wave launches in 6 hours. The Council ships are positioning to block our exit vector. "Can they stop us?" "They don't understand how the full drive works," Olivia said with a small smile. "They're guarding the routes they know. We're taking paths they can't even see." As the countdown approached, families gathered in observation lounges throughout the fleet. Some wept quietly, watching Earth grow smaller in view screens. Others looked forward with excitement to the unknown future. On the bridge of the Determination, Captain Wright received the final authorization code. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," she broadcast to the assembled vessels. "Synchronize full drives and prepare for departure. We leave together. We arrive together." 3,000 ships powered up their engines, a coordinated hum of energy building across the lunar surface. In the Council vessels, alien observers watched in confusion as strange energy patterns flickered across their sensors. "What are they doing?" one asked. Before anyone could answer, the first wave of human ships simply vanished, leaving only empty space where they had been seconds before. Humanity had begun its journey beyond the reach of the Galactic Council. The last major ships hovered above Earth, preparing for their final departure. 10 days had passed since the first wave vanished into the dimensional slipstreams. Now the remaining vessels would join them, leaving behind only a small caretaker population who had volunteered to stay. On the bridge of his ship, Council Ambassador Grexthal watched with mounting desperation. His orders from the Council had changed 3 times in the past week, going from threats to offers of negotiation to outright pleas. Nothing had worked. Humanity continued its exodus without hesitation. Request direct communication with the human leadership. Grexthal ordered his communications officer. Minutes later, a screen lit up showing Admiral Morrison, now aboard the final command vessel. Ambassador, Morrison acknowledged with a nod. Have you come to wish us safe travels? This is madness, Grexthal said, his translucent skin pulsing with stress colors. You're abandoning your homeworld based on a single rejection. 3 rejections, Morrison corrected, and decades of being treated as lesser beings despite meeting every requirement you set. The Council has authorized me to offer full membership with no further conditions, Grexthal said, playing his final card. Humanity would have a voice in all Council matters. Your technology would be protected, your culture preserved. For a moment, Morrison's face showed a flicker of what might have been regret. Then he shook his head. The offer comes too late, Ambassador. We've already found our own way forward. You don't understand, Grexthal said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. The truth is, we feared you. This caught Morrison by surprise. Feared us? We've never threatened the Council. Not militarily, the Ambassador admitted. It was your adaptability, your innovation, your unpredictability. Most Council species develop over tens of thousands of years. You compressed that evolution into centuries. Your minds work differently. You see solutions where we see only problems. Chief Science Officer Eric Taylor, who had been listening nearby, stepped into view of the communication screen. That's exactly why we needed to be partners, not subjects, he said with a sad smile. Our differences could have made us stronger together. Grexthal's skin darkened with emotion. Many of us see that now, but the Council moves slowly. Too slowly. Yes, Morrison agreed. Too slowly for humans. On the lower decks of the vessel, families settled into their quarters for the journey. Some children pressed their faces against viewports for a final glimpse of the blue planet that had been humanity's only home for hundreds of thousands of years. Will we ever come back? A young girl asked her father. Maybe someday, he answered, but we're going to find new homes among the stars. The final ship in the Exodus fleet was smaller than the others. Named Remembrance, it carried Earth's most precious remaining cultural treasures and scientific knowledge. Captain Sharon Williams stood on its bridge, a stoic woman whose family had served in navies going back generations. All systems ready, Captain, her first officer reported. Sharon nodded. Begin final departure sequence. As Remembrance prepared to leave, Sharon opened a channel to the Council vessels. This is Captain Williams of Earth Vessel Remembrance, the last ship of the Exodus. We take with us the heart and soul of humanity's achievements. Our journey begins today, but our story is far from over. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. We would have been loyal allies. Remember that in the centuries to come. With that final message, Sharon gave the order to engage the fold drive. Energy swirled around the ship, space itself seeming to bend and ripple. From the Council vessels, Grexthal watched in silence as the last human ship vanished. Earth still hung in space before him, beautiful and blue, now home to only a small fraction of its former population. He turned to his aide. Send a message to the Council. Tell them we were wrong. But he knew his words would arrive too late. The Council would debate and discuss for months before taking any action. Meanwhile, humanity was already forging its new future in spaces the Council had never explored, free from the limitations that had been placed upon them. The Exodus was complete. The consequences were just beginning. 6 months after humanity's departure, the Grand Council chamber felt emptier than ever before. Representatives from 57 species sat in their designated areas, but the energy that once filled the room had faded. Elder Yulmox called the session to order, his ancient voice barely carrying across the space. "We gather to discuss the continued effects of the human exodus," he announced. No one spoke at first. Then Zexkarth floated forward, his gelatinous body darker than usual. "The economic impact grows worse each month," he reported. "Trade routes that relied on human goods have collapsed. 17 member worlds report resource shortages." A reptilian delegate hissed in frustration. Humans were just one species out of thousands in our territory. How could their absence cause such disruption? Vren Talu stood up, no longer a junior diplomat, but now his world's full representative. "Because we underestimated their importance. Human innovation drove progress in hundreds of fields. Their entertainment connected cultures that otherwise had little in common. Their agricultural methods fed billions on developing worlds. And now they're gone," said another representative. "By our own doing." Across the chamber, arguments broke out. Some blamed the humans for abandoning their responsibilities. Others blamed the Council for its stubborn refusal to accept them as equals. As the debate raged, reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. Security systems on 6 border worlds had failed, systems originally designed by human engineers. Without regular updates, vulnerabilities had been discovered and exploited by raiders. The Council military struggled to adapt, having relied on human tactical analysis for decades without realizing it. On peaceful worlds like Proxima Centauri IV, citizens gathered in public squares demanding their governments reconnect with humans. Many species had formed deep bonds with Earth's people, partnerships that the Council's decision had severed against their wishes. Meanwhile, strange reports began filtering in from the outer regions. An unidentified settlement had appeared on an unclaimed planet near the Orion Nebula. A trading post run by humans had been discovered operating beyond Council space, exchanging goods with non-member species. A human research station was spotted studying a neutron star in a region the Council had deemed too dangerous to explore. "They're everywhere and nowhere," complained the military commander to the Council. "We detect energy signatures matching their fold drive technology, but when we investigate, we find only empty space. They appear without warning and vanish before we can make contact." Vren Talu studied the star maps showing reported human sightings. A pattern emerged that the others hadn't noticed. The humans weren't just fleeing Council space. They were systematically exploring the gaps between established territories, areas the Council had ignored for millennia. "They're building something out there," he realized. "A network beyond our jurisdiction." In the meeting's third hour, a more disturbing report arrived. 3 Council member species had secretly sent representatives to establish contact with the human settlements. They were considering leaving the Council to join whatever new organization humanity was creating. Elder Yulmox's hands trembled as he called for order. "This body has stood for 50,000 years. We will not allow it to fracture now." But his words lacked conviction. The Council had maintained stability through strict control and slow, careful change. Humanity had shown there was another way forward. Faster, more dynamic, more free. The idea was spreading like wildfire through the younger Council species. As the session ended without resolution, Vren Talu found himself standing beside Ambassador Grexthal, watching the representatives file out in subdued groups. "We should have embraced them when we had the chance," Grexthal said quietly. Vren Talu nodded. "The question now is whether they'll ever give us another opportunity." "Do you think they will?" "Humans were always more forgiving than we deserved," Vren Talu replied. "But they're no longer the same people who petitioned us for 50 years. They've changed. They've grown. And we're still the same," Grexthal realized. "Still debating while the galaxy transforms around us." Out beyond Council space, humanity continued to forge its new path, unbound by the limitations that had held them back for so long. 50 years had passed since humanity left Council space. The Grand Council headquarters station orbiting Centauri Prime had seen better days. Once the crown jewel of galactic civilization, its shine had dulled, its hallways emptier than they once were. Inside the main council chamber, representatives from 43 species gathered for their monthly session. 14 former members had withdrawn in the past 5 decades, seeking new alliances or choosing isolation. Elder Paxenor, who had replaced Yilnox after his passing, called the meeting to order. The agenda was familiar: border disputes, trade imbalances, and the ever-present question of how to address the growing human presence beyond council territory. Reports indicate 3 more independent trading hubs have been established in the Outer Rim, a delegate was saying, all showing human design principles but welcoming all species. Before the discussion could continue, an aide rushed into the chamber, his 4 legs moving quickly across the polished floor. "Honored representatives," he announced, breathing heavily. "A human ship has appeared at the station dock." The chamber erupted in surprised voices. No human vessel had approached council space in 50 years. "Just one ship?" asked Elder Paxenor. "Yes, Elder. Small, diplomatic class. They request permission to address the council." Within minutes, the chamber had reorganized. Security personnel lined the walls. Recording devices activated. History was about to be made, and everyone knew it. The doors slid open, and a single human entered. He walked with the slight stiffness of age, his hair silver white, his face lined with years. Some of the older council members recognized him immediately. Paul Edwards, whispered Vrentalu, now a senior council member himself. He was a junior diplomat during the original negotiations. Paul Edwards approached the central speaking platform with calm dignity. At 78 years old, he had seen humanity transform from a single-planet species to a thriving interstellar civilization. "Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice stronger than his appearance suggested, "I bring greetings from the human cooperative. No threats, no accusations, no demands for apologies, just a simple greeting that left many representatives puzzled." "Why have you returned?" Elder Paxenor asked directly. Paul smiled. "To extend an invitation." He activated a small device he carried. A holographic display appeared above the council floor, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of points of light appeared in regions the council had never thoroughly explored. Human settlements, research stations, and trading posts spanning an area nearly as large as council space itself. "In 50 years, we have built something new," Paul explained. "The human cooperative now includes 17 species, most of whom never applied for council membership. We've established 233 settlements on previously uninhabited worlds." The council members stared at the display in stunned silence. "We've developed technologies you haven't imagined," Paul continued. "We've mapped regions you never explored. We've built relationships with species you never contacted." "Are you here to gloat?" asked a reptilian delegate bitterly. Paul shook his head. "No. We're here to offer you a chance to join us as equals in something new. A galactic cooperative built on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control." He let the words sink in before continuing. "We don't seek to replace the council or absorb its members as subordinates. We propose a merger of equals, combining the council's stability and wisdom with our innovation and adaptability." The chamber filled with voices, some outraged, some intrigued, some fearful. Elder Paxenor raised his hands for silence. "Why would you offer this after our rejection?" "Because holding grudges limits growth," Paul answered simply. "We've moved beyond our anger. Now we see opportunity where once we saw only rejection." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various representatives. "The choice is yours. You can continue as you have, managing your decline, or join us in building something greater than either of us could create alone." Paul stepped back from the platform. "Our ship will remain docked for 7 days. Those interested in learning more may visit freely." As he turned to leave, one final question came from Vrentalu. "What if we refuse?" Paul paused at the doorway. Then we wish you well and continue our own journey. But know this, the universe is changing. The question isn't whether you'll adapt, but whether you'll do so by choice or necessity. The door closed behind him, leaving the council in turmoil as the greatest decision in its 50,000-year history loomed before them.